Last week, Anthony Bourdain took his own life. Anthony Bourdain, for those who followed his career on television, seemed like a man who had everything. He had a beautiful wife, he had a young child, he had a very successful career. He had a job that involved traveling the world, tasting the delicacies that the world had to offer, and finding everything that was beautiful in the world. Why did Anthony Bourdain kill himself? Why is Anthony Bourdain one among a long line of seemingly happy people who have taken their lives? People like Robin Williams, Kate Spade, even musicians who we'd never thought would be lost to something like suicide. Urban depression is a massive problem that we're not talking about enough. And the story of Anthony Bourdain should remind us that if we don't know enough about urban depression, we will not be able to find out if there's someone around us, a loved one, a spouse, a child, a parent, a sibling. If that person is at risk of suicide, if that person is suffering through depression and we can't tell, how will we ever reach out and save them? That's what we're discussing tonight. How do we tell if someone is going through urban depression, and isn't it time we start talking about it more openly? Joining me on the show today, Dr. Zirak Marker is the advisor and senior psychiatrist at Empower. Annie Chandy is the chairperson of the Live, Love and Laugh Foundation. She is, in fact, the first certified transactional analyst from Asia accredited by the International Transactional Analysis Association. Dr. Shraddha Sidhwani is a clinical psychologist. Kasturi is an actor, an advocate, and Nupur Mehta. Sonal Ahuja is an educationalist. And that's the conversation we're having today. Dr. Mark, I'm going to start with you. Obviously, it's important for us to talk about it more. And the response normally is, really, we thought this person was so happy. We thought this person had everything. What could have possibly driven them to suicide? What are the telltale signs of depression, and how can we tell?
So depression basically is, I think what we need to really go out there and express is that we need to create more awareness to people to let them know that depression is not just feeling sad and low, it is a neurochemical imbalance. And that's why sometimes we call it or term it as a clinical depression. And when we use the word clinical, it means that there is a neurochemical imbalance in the brain, primarily of serotonin, which leads to certain signs and symptoms of depression. And they come in all forms. You can have a 9-year-old child, you can have a 90-year-old man going through clinical signs and symptoms which sometimes get masked. And they come in various forms. It can be changes or alterations in behavior, or low mood, or irritability and acting out in children sometimes, a lack and loss of interest sometimes in almost everything, social withdrawal, changes in eating patterns, sleeping patterns, and so on and so forth. And I think what shrouds us all and families today is we don't want to speak about it, and that's not okay. And I think the whole fraternity also so shrouded with stigma and the fear of letting people know that depression is perhaps a weakness, and it's really not. And I think the more awareness we spread, and more awareness leads to prevention. And we need to address depression like we would address thyroid or we would address diabetes, because it is a medical condition where we have 1.3 lakh people in India committing suicide annually.
1.3 lakh people in India committing suicide.
1.3 lakh Indians, and they say 2 to 4% of Indians have a diagnosed major depressive disorder, and worldwide every 40 seconds there is death by suicide. So it is a national concern, and the sad part is that there is just one psychiatrist for every 3 lakh Indians today. So there is a lot of awareness we need to spread. There's a lot of knowledge that we have to give out there. And we need to talk about it openly with loved ones, with family members. And I strongly advocate that we need to bring mental health into school curriculums as well. And I think when we start that and we do that young, and we let the next generation understand deeper, more facts about mental health, we are then on the right path.
Absolutely. I want to take this question to Anna Chandy. Anna, for a lot of people who are watching right now, and we're going to put a phone number at the bottom of your screen, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. pick up the phone and call us. Even if you don't have an opinion to voice at this point, pick up the phone and call us if you want us to give you a helpline number, if you want us to put you in touch with someone who can help, if you even slightly suspect that you or somebody else in your family is suffering with some sort of depression, that's reason enough to ask for help. Anna Chandy, how would an individual who's watching right now know if they're suffering from depression?
I think initially they may not know, but when you have a few symptoms for over 4 to 5 days, and specifically some symptoms where you lack drive, your sadness is something so deep that you yourself cannot fathom. And a lot of my clients have also shared that even when they've had that experience in the first 2-3 days, they are unable to recognize what is happening. That is the first symptom that really we need to alert people around us, that when they experience these kind of symptoms, it's immediately okay to ask for help and to call a helpline, or to even call speak to somebody close to you saying that I'm going through something that I'm not able to understand and I need help.
And Anna Chandy, what does a person do if they realize that they are experiencing some of the symptoms that the doctor just mentioned? Who do I go to? What do I do about those symptoms?
I think it's very important to first speak to somebody, whoever you feel comfortable with, who you feel who is not going to judge you. That's the first step. Now, the person who listens, I think it's very important for them to understand that in these kind of situations, it's important to take professional support. And now, yes, there are various helplines. There are also various NGOs providing free supportive services, and also these NGOs and these helplines maintain confidentiality. If you otherwise, it's also the other alternative is to seek a professional a mental health professional and go to them. Very often what's happening in our country, which we need to actually raise a flag, is individuals talk to their family, and because of the stigma associated with any form of mental illness or mental disorder, the family, instead of getting them help, try to cover it up and, address it by asking them to feel motivated or give them motivational talks. To me and to the foundation, this is a complete no. When a person is feeling not okay, at that time to give them something motivational to do actually makes them feel worse than before.
So I'm going to come back to this question then, Dr. Marker. If I have a friend or a colleague or my spouse even who says, listen, I'm depressed, I think there's something wrong, what do I ideally do? What should I do?
So there's a new concept called mental health first aid, which we are even propagating through our center at Empower. And I think it's so important that when you are engaged, as you said, with someone you love, or you know someone who is perhaps going through something clinical like a depression or suicidal in its ideations and thoughts, you need to first actively listen, and you need to listen non-judgmentally without any bias, and at least let the person know that you are there to support him or her, and just let that process go through, and then pick up the pieces and allow the person to seek help. So we need to guide people to seek professional help by that kind of assistance. And there was a misconception in the past that when you thought that someone was perhaps suicidal, they said never ask directly. Don't ever ask that, are you feeling like, attempting to take your life? But studies have shown otherwise. They say that you need to. So when you get a feeling that someone is perhaps even suicidal, you need to directly ask. And that itself opens up channels of communication and
you
could
shouldn't
save a life.
tiptoe around a person that you think might be facing a problem.
Even as therapists, years back, we were trained not to directly ask. And now the whole concept's changing where you need to directly ask. And they say that even a loved one can do that, and you need to ask that, do you feel like that you want to end your life, or are you feeling suicidal in any way? And
if I think, and I want to come back, and the reason why we're having this conversation, for me particularly, is the number of people we have lost to suicide. I mean, listen to this list. Robin Williams, Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, Chester Bennington, Nafisa Joseph, Bayu Maharaj, who was a spiritual leader and who gave a lot of other people comfort, and one wondered what happened, why didn't he have the same comfort? Himanshu Roy, an Indian police officer who was the epitome of everything that was tough and strong and, you know, both physically and mentally, we lost him as well. You know, these names sort of suggest to us that this could happen to anybody. And if we feel that there is somebody at risk, I know someone around me who might be, like you said, having suicidal thoughts, what do I do then?
like I said, you need to emphasize the importance of seeking professional help.
Okay.
I mean, today, for example, if I have a loved one with a toothache or my own child is going through a fever, I don't think twice, right? I just go to the right professional. If I have a cardiac problem, I'm not going to see my GP. I will go to a cardiologist. So we need to understand there are mental health professionals out there in terms of there are psychologists, there are counselors, there are psychiatrists, and even in our psychiatric field, there are specialists. So we have child and adolescent psychiatrists, we have geriatric psychiatrists. So there are professionals out there, and seeking the right timely intervention is so important. And even in a medical condition, right, like with cancer, for example, the earlier you intervene, the better the prognosis. Is the same with mental health illnesses as well. And more so with depression. The more you wait it out and you kind of procrastinate seeking help either through counseling or medication, it's a win-win situation. And again, as you know, someone has rightly said, we need to stamp out that stigma. There is so much of stigma that shrouds mental health itself. Even with us as psychiatrists, they feel that if you go to a psychiatrist, there's something drastically wrong with you. You'll be heavily medicated with tablets. You'll get dependent on those tablets. And that's all so unscientifically and so not true.
Yeah, actually, that's the question I want to ask Shraddha Sidhwani as well. One of the problems, like pointed out, is still a sort of embarrassment with seeking professional help when it comes to mental health in our country. Would you say it is a danger that if I know that there's someone around me who has suicidal thoughts, even if it's myself, to sort of attempt to talk the person out of it without seeking professional help, without going to the right person, because we're embarrassed?
Sure, Faye. I definitely think that there is a lot of embarrassment, there is a lot of stigma that people face before coming to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I would just add into what Dr. Has already been said, that there are a lot of negative thoughts that suddenly come, and that's one of the first signs in depression. You know, you suddenly feel extremely negative about every event of your life, but at the same time you don't know what to do, and just talking to your spouse or a friend may not help. So a counselor there or a psychologist would guide you through a structured process to help yourself. The initial session that we have, it is extremely uncomfortable for the patient, is extremely uncomfortable for the client or their relatives to first accept that they are going through depression. So depression could happen to me at the age of 40, but I was, fine till 40. That's one of the first questions that happen. How come this has happened to me? I've been so strong, I've been so powerful, I've been managing everything, and today I feel depressed. So I think the first step is about the acceptance of the problem, that it happens to all of us. It is, as mentioned before, it is a chemical imbalance. One of the other things that people tend to do is, linger their depression, and so it worsens. I think one needs to understand that depression is totally, totally curable.
Depression is totally curable. Let me bring in my other guest as well. Kasturi is an actor out of Chennai. Kasturi, it's important also for people in the public eye to come out and talk about it. We've had quite a few celebrities, thankfully in our country at least, be open about depression. How important is it in your mind to get young people in our country to talk about it as well?
Okay. First off, I'm a little worried about saying anything right now even because I'm wondering if I'm sick as well. And I don't say that with shame? I'm just asking because I think in my mind there is a difference. Not all suicide stems out of depression. I think a lot of suicide is impulse based. So we need to make the discrimination, the distinction between impulse-based suicide, which I think is very, very unfortunate, and it's something that is, you don't see it coming. I've lost people that were so chirpy and happy, and you just couldn't tell, and the next day they were dead, and it was a shock to everyone. That's very different from depression. I've gone through depression. I have a very, very close friend who battled depression 2 years ago, and you can tell. There are telltale signs. It's not all Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain. The first sign, I think, and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I am an advocate, I'm a lawyer. I do see instances of this more often in a certain demographic than the other. But acute depression triggered by some kind of loss or heartbreak, you can tell people will start.
Is that true, Dr. Barker? Is that there are different types of? Yes. One second, Dr. Barker. Is that true that not all suicides are results of depression? That there might be something called impulse suicides as well.
I think there is some truth in saying that every person who attempts suicide or dies by suicide doesn't necessarily have clinical depression. So you do have suicides that emanate from, say, severe psychological or emotional distress. So you could have a very acute,
a shock,
impulsive kind of a breakup, discord, marital fights, family conflict, or severe financial loss, or very chronic medical conditions, or like cancer and things like that. So there are multiple reasons why people choose to perhaps end their life.
Yeah, pain.
Yeah, so there is a spectrum. So yes, so every suicide case is not necessarily secondary to a clinical depression.
Yes.
So you do have other causes of suicide.
I have a question for the doctor. Can I ask?
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have seen death stare at me in the face thrice before in life, and at this point, if you live long enough, at this point, I am an advocate for life. I think it's worth living because you think you have nothing else to live for, and suddenly you realize if you pass that stage, life has these little Easter eggs that it throws out at you. And the other reason a lot of people continue to live is because of responsibility. I'm not at a stage where I can give up my life because there are a lot of people who need me, including the friends that I have been able to help out of depression because I know what to do. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. But doctor, I do feel that at some point, people who've done it all, who we think have it all, is it such a bad thing to want to choose when you have to go instead of having to wait for an unknown date and time when you would be unexpectedly dead? Is it so bad to want to control your death as well? Is that a sick way of looking at things?
Do you want to answer
because
that question?
I do feel that way sometimes.
So basically, I can't disregard a choice. And yes, as you say, some of the strongest people we know of and on the surface happiest and all with it do end up attempting suicide. But we cannot take away from the fact that their pain, their suffering and their inner turmoil is real. Yeah. So like I said, so it's a matter of choice, yes. But just imagine the suffering and pain someone internally goes through emotionally or psychologically to actually reach a point where they feel suicide is then the only option.
In fact, Kaushal is on the phone line from Chennai right now. We have people calling us on our phone line. Kaushal, go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Kaushal.
Yeah. Actually, I have one question or suggestion from doctor.
Yes.
Who is in your panel?
Yes.
What is the thing is? I'm suffering nowadays. I'm suffering with myself. I'm suffering with depression. What is the reason? one of my family member is behaving abnormal nowadays. So what is I want to bring to him to the doctor. The thing is, but he is not accepting that I am having this problem. Okay, so the major challenge for me, how should I bring to the doctor? So what happening now is this is reflecting on me. Now I am feeling depressed. How I manage this situation? I want to know if the doctor having any suggestions.
Right. Let me take the question to Anna Chandy. Anna Chandy, is there any advice you can give to Kaushal, who's on the phone line?
Yes, one thing is, Gautam, that is why we suggest that when somebody close to you is suffering from depression, it's very difficult for the people who are close to be in helping you, because mental health professionals, we also learn how to be detached along with being being empathetic towards you. And I think what happens when you're constantly with somebody who's feeling very low and depressed, because you are trying to help them, you begin to feel helpless. So it's important for a mental health professional to step in to take over supporting that person.
Right, so this is what the doctor also said, that don't try and solve this problem yourself.
The other thing I wanted to bring up, can I just say one more thing?
Yes, please go ahead, Anna.
I also heard in the discussion about, can I say something?
Yes, please.
I also heard in the discussion about people being strong and still taking their lives. Sometimes people who've been very strong for very long feel exhausted and can't cope, and then they take their lives. So I think we need to again remember that what we are talking about in clinical depression is that the pain and the suffering that the individual has been going through is so deep and so out of depth for them themselves, which they can't fathom. So we cannot make a comparison that whether it's about them being strong or weak. It can happen to any of us, and it is an illness. It's nothing to do with our character.
Yes,
absolutely.
Very, very well said. Nupur Mehta is an actor who joins us out of Delhi. Nupur, how important is it for people in the public limelight like yourself to talk about mental health more freely?
You know, I've been hearing everybody on the debate, and I would like to share my own experience here. I have been twice in depression, and it is the worst state of mental disorder. You just stop doing all your most favorite things. I mean, I used to love gymming, I used to love watching sports channels, and I completely stopped doing it. And then I was embarrassed to go to a psychiatrist, because what will my friends say? That she's a retard, she's going to a psychiatrist, she's seeking a psychiatric help. So I was in depression for almost 1 year. And there were suicidal thoughts. I was having acute depression. There were suicidal thoughts, but I was not so strong to commit suicide or to attempt a suicide. But there were always suicidal thoughts. I mean, I would, request people who are in depression to come out of it. You must meet a doctor. You must take antidepressant pills. And then you have to start doing your most favorite things. You have to start meditating. You have to do yoga. And you have to get out of it, because it is the worst experience. It is a worst expression, a feeling. I've never, I'd never experienced it. I mean, when people used to talk about depression, I was completely unaware of, what depression was. And after going through my own case, I mean, 3-4 of my celebrity friends and my colleagues, they committed suicide. Jia Khan, the actor, she hung herself. Nafisa Joseph, the Miss India, she hung herself. Viveka Babaji, the model, she also hung herself. And I've been very close to them. I've seen them in depression, but I could never, relate to them, because I didn't know this feeling myself. Yes. And after having known this feeling, I mean, now I can imagine what they went through. So it is very important to get out of this mental disorder, and
Right.
I would request you know, people who ever have gone through depression must consult a psychiatrist, and don't be embarrassed, don't feel shy. I mean, it has to be cured as soon as possible.
Rajesh is on the phone line from Bangalore. Rajesh, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm a depression survivor myself.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was doing reasonably well in life until 2010, you know. Then suddenly I started feeling some sort of discomfort and losing interest in my work. And, you know, my sleeping routine got changed. Also, my food habits got changed, you know. I met my family doctor. He said, oh, you're suffering from hypertension and this, and so he gave me medicines for hypertension and also for sleep. But nothing helped me, and ultimately, one day, one of my cousins, who is an ENT surgeon in Bangalore, who had been seeing me often, just happened to meet me, and he realized there's something is wrong with me, and he asked me immediately, you should see a psychiatrist. And he referred me to one of his colleagues in Bangalore, and the psychiatrist spoke to me for almost an hour, and he realized that I'm suffering from very severe depression condition. And he asked me to get admitted immediately to NIMAMS, but due to some problems in family and there was no support, so I couldn't get myself admitted. And I moved myself to Mangalore.
Yes.
And there I was under treatment from a very senior doctor from AJ Hospital, a psychiatrist.
Yes.
And it took me almost 3 years.
Right.
So
to recover.
The medication is still on.
Yes.
But during this period, you know, I tried suicide attempts at least 3 times, and somehow I was able to control myself. And I know, you know, I don't know whether it's a miracle or whatever, but it had almost gone to the edge of it.
Right. Rajesh, thank you for sharing your story with us. I have one question for Sonal Ahuja, who's been waiting very patiently. Sonal, we've seen a large number of young people, students, especially in the last couple of months, where results have been coming out of board exams, entrance exams. Students have been taking their own lives because of results that would be a couple of points lower than what they expected. Is the pressure on our students too hard? Is this something parents should be more aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's really tough to speak after all the experts, but since I was listening it very carefully, just what came to my mind was it's really, really difficult to be simple in life, you know. So what's happening is, can we just find out that root cause? Why depression? Why the children are getting into the suicides? It's basically, it's a question to the parents, educators, and the whole education fraternity. Are we really giving them enough time and ear whenever they want to come back and speak to us? That's the one thing. Now, why such things prevails? Can I just go back and check the environment? Can I just go back and see what kind of interactions happening with the child throughout? And I'm not into it that a child enters a puberty and that's a stage where they get exposed to XYZ and so they get into it. But I would comment here that it has to start from early years. You know, the whole brain architecture is getting developed there from 0 to 8 years, which is kind of completely ignored in our country. You know, children take birth, mothers are giving birth to children. They are very much worried about their businesses to invest, but they don't know how to plan a child. So what I want to tell is, if you plan a child, be careful what kind of an environment the child is brought up in and what kind of interactions are happening around the child, because this is what the recordings are happening. In
So
the child's brain. And this is what
go
is
ahead,
going to lay down
please.
a kind
Anna
of a
Chandy, go
blueprint.
ahead, please. Anna Chandy.
Yeah, sure.
I have a different thought on this, because I think I would also like to highlight that, especially in India, it's not just about having a baby or about deciding to be a parent, because I think in India, one of the areas of depression that is ignored is postpartum depression. There are women who are suffering from depression, and they, because of a lack of awareness of the illness, and all the focus is on caregiving of the baby, neglecting the care needs of the mother, and there are people who are, especially women in India, there are large numbers suffering from postpartum depression. And again, I would like to state that depression is a clinical illness. It is the components that contribute to the illness can be environment, can be parents in conflict, can be various other stressors. But I don't think that it is about a specific single component that causes depression. It can be genetic. I think depression as an illness is complex. So I think it's important for us not to judge it as just, you know, in a form of causative manner. I think we need to look at the whole thing holistically of various components.
I think I would like to add something here.
And I think one thing that we are all forgetting is, no, but I would like to tell you one thing while we are all talking about this. The foundation, we did a data research which we released early this year, and what was interesting in the metros and especially in some of the tier 2 cities, when there is high awareness, there is also high stigma. So it's not that there's stigma because of there's a lack of awareness. I think as a country, we need to work collectively towards in the area of psycho-education to shape the conversation that just like physical illnesses, people suffer from mental illnesses. So I would like to again say,
I understand what you're saying, Anna Chandy. We have to wrap up this discussion right now, but fundamentally what we're talking about is this. If you believe for whatever reason, you yourself or someone around you is suffering from any sort of, even if it's a slight suggestion or a hunch you might have, the only thing to do, the one and only thing to do is to seek professional help. It's like going to a doctor. Do not self-medicate, just seek professional help. If you think someone around you is unwell, give that person an unjudging shoulder to lean on and suggest that that person seek professional help. Offer your services. Say, I will come with you. I will stand with you. I will wait outside while you meet with the doctor. But that is the only solution. Do not ask that person, go do yoga. Don't tell that person, come, let's go out and shop. Don't tell that person, go out for a walk, get some air, you'll feel better. None of these things are actually solutions. There is only one solution, and the solution is to see a doctor. We understand a lot of people are calling us on our phone lines, and we will continue to take this up on a regular basis so that we can give you as much information as you need about this problem. Thanks for watching.